So those are a few of the differences between the preceptor model and the DEU. And the take-home point on this is that the key relationships are highly important. You've heard the saying, you know, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it also takes a unit to raise a nurse and produce a good graduate. And these are the folks that are involved in that. Of course, the student comes, and the student is so fortunate to have the opportunity to learn at the bedside with that expert clinical nurse. The faculty coordinator is so fortunate to have those facilitators that she can rely on to provide those learning experiences for the student. School of Nurses, we definitely benefit because then we're able to graduate nurses that are well qualified, that have had very good learning experiences in the clinical areas. Now, what about the clinical facilitator? What about you? What do you get out of this model? Professional growth and development of your own clinical skills, opportunities for advancement, because as you demonstrate leadership and you have learned new roles and you have developed your roles, then what happens and what we have seen on these units is what is called positive turnover. You hear the concern with retaining qualified nurses on the unit, losing these nurses because they're not satisfied, they're not happy. With the DEU model, the clinic facilitators are retained on that unit because they enjoy what they're doing. If there is turnover, it's because they're taking other leadership positions as they're continuing their own growth and development in lifelong learning. What we see and what's been seen in other schools is that facilitators, they like what they're doing, they enjoy teaching, they decide, I'm going to go back to school. And so they may go back to school to be a nurse educator, an administrator, practitioner. So they continue to develop because, again, the focus is on continued lifelong learning. Nurse managers benefit. We have nurse managers in here today. Okay. Your benefits, retention of qualified nurses, but recruitment also, because what we have found is that these students that go to these DEU units, they like it so well. They feel comfortable, they've learned so much, that they want to go back there when they graduate and work. And I can tell you, some of our students have said that. We heard Debbie say that they complained that they wanted her assurance that they could go to a DEU the following semester. And that's a challenge for schools of nursing because we would love to be able to provide dedicated education unit experiences for them every semester. We're not able to do that, but they love it. They want to go back. They don't want to give up their mentors. They don't want to give up their facilitators. And in one meeting I was with our group at university, the facilitator said, well, we want this same group next time. We've started, we've bonded with them, we formed the relationship, and we've got, we want to continue that relationship. So for everyone involved, it is a win-win situation. And of course, the hospital and the DEU unit benefits too, because that is the unit that is set aside and recognized for excellence in education and excellence in patient care. Now, that was a long introduction to roles and responsibilities, but I wanted to give you that little bit of a background on DEUs. Let's talk specifically about the individuals and what their responsibilities are. Nurse managers, critically important here that the nurse managers buy into the DEU concept. Nurse managers must be able to coordinate the unit resources for optimal learning. And that means initially on the first day of a new rotation, some staffing up because that facilitator and that student will need some time to develop their relationship and to begin working together. And we've noticed that just this year and a half that we have to plan for a little bit of staffing up. It may be other resources like a conference room space for the staff nurses and the students to meet. It may be other educational resources, so the nurse manager is responsible for coordinating the unit resources, but for problem solving as well with the faculty and the staff. and others to maintain that commitment. The nurse manager is going to assign the staff to the students in the model. That nurse manager knows which staff is going to work best with a student in this model. And then, of course, overall coordinating the delivery of care on that meeting. In one of our meetings last year, one of the managers mentioned that issue that came up, and that is the need to make sure that the entire unit is involved in the DEU model, not just the facilitators. And this was brought up that we need to make sure that every step of the way that anyone working on that unit is involved in perhaps some training and some knowledge of what's going on, because their role there too is to provide for the education and the commitment to the learning on that unit. So I thought that was a good point, and we're working more toward that. The faculty coordinator, again, this is a faculty member that's been identified in the School of Nursing that has years and years of teaching experience, is an expert teacher and an expert in clinical teaching. And the faculty coordinator is going to work with the manager, the staff, and the students to make sure that the information regarding the course is supplied. The coordinator will provide the syllabus, the schedules, the day-to-day details of the student expectations, contact information, just coordination on that end of the model. The faculty will coordinate the orientation and processing of students in clinic and orient the facilitator to how to approach these students, providing information about the student as a group, their level, the expectations for this course and this semester, and then also conducting a post-conference, assisting the students to integrate the theory into practice. So think about that faculty coordinator as the resource person for the clinical facilitator and coordinating on the student end, the learning activities to meet the curriculum goals. Paperwork is always an issue. I've heard preceptors say, "Now I'm going to have to grade paperwork." The answer to that is no. The clinical faculty coordinator will evaluate the paper and share the results with the facilitator. And where there's an area of deficit, then say, this student may need a little help in thinking through a management plan related to this diagnosis or whatever. So sharing that back, again, for student learning. Maintaining the communication and a presence on that unit. The faculty will hold the final responsibility for evaluation, but this is in collaboration with the facilitator in the day-to-day evaluation of student performance. I think a big role here for the faculty is working with the facilitator on student issues and their own development plan. We have had over the year and a half some of our facilitators say, "Well, I've had this situation to come up. I've got a student that is a hesitant learner, a little bit reluctant, wants to go high. Or I have a student that perhaps just didn't do such a hot job with a skill today, and I'm not sure how to provide that feedback. Or I've got an over-anxious student who thinks that she knows it all, and I have to hold her back because I know she doesn't know it all." So issues that come up, can you identify an issue that you have had with a student and you've wondered, how do I need to handle that? Any issues that you've experienced? There are many out there. Professional behavior, communication, working with the families. Many things come up. And so it's important that you know how to handle that with the students. Students need to have feedback, and it needs to be provided in a way that fosters growth and development and learning. And sometimes it's hard to give negative feedback. So the facilitator, the faculty is going to work with you on how to provide that feedback and how to deal with a particular issue that may come up. The student that's always tardy to the unit, or the student that doesn't seem to be prepared. Now, you're the facilitators. And who are you? You're experienced nurses. You've got a commitment to teaching, mentoring, and guiding, inspiring, supporting student learning. You have a passion for teaching. That's the kind of facilitator we're looking for. Someone that when the student comes to the unit, you just love to have students. Now, not everyone is that way. We know that there are some nurses that just would rather not be placed in that role. But the facilitators have a passion for teaching, and they gravitate toward that student because they have things to share, and they want to help that student learn. For our model, the facilitators must be prepared at or beyond the level of instruction and must have completed the preceptor training program, because we believe that this role builds on the preceptor role, in that it involves more evaluation and delivery of feedback to students. So you will direct and you will evaluate student learning on the unit. You will identify clinical teaching activities that you think would benefit the student to help them meet those course objectives. And you will provide what only you can do, that reflection on ongoing practice and the most up-to-date current clinical information. That's what you have to do. Providing feedback to students on their performance, evaluating the students at the bedside as they're doing a skill or as they're communicating with patient and family, taking them outside the door and having time to talk about what you did well and what you might improve on. And then again, that ongoing participation in your own professional development. Would you like to add to that? Back up. Comments? Does that make sense to you? Is that a challenge to you? Does that excite you? Now then, what about these students? What is their role? What is their responsibility? To be knowledgeable of the clinical outcomes. And that's where we come in and we prepare these students to know what the expectations are. And we share that with you, the facilitators. We expect these students to work with the facilitators to develop the skills and knowledge that they need. And the students that have been on these units have been enthused, they've been eager, and they have really risen to that level to seek out learning experiences. We expect them to reflect on their learning, to seek feedback on performance, and show that consistent growth in clinical competencies. And again, just in working with our students, we know that students are going to be at different levels. There are going to be some very high achievers and very strong students. We know that there are some that are going to need a little bit more coaxing and a little bit more help. It's going to be a mixed bag. But there are those basic expectations that we want them to come with, that we have of their performance in clinical. So we want them to be there, be engaged, and at the point you see maybe that they're not where they need to be, then that's where you talk with your faculty and you develop a plan on how to get that student where the student needs to be. It has worked for us. We've had a few issues from time to time that we have worked through, but it's been, again, a successful one.